Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me for another video. Wanted to do a little something different this week because of the crazy game that we just witnessed on Sunday. My Minnesota Vikings. Still trying to get over what happened. Still trying to process all of the range of emotions that I went through in this game. And so that is why I decided I'm going to skip my weekend review. We're going to focus on this game. I'm going to do a rundown and something I like to call a game in the life of a Vikings fan, because this game had so many roller coaster peaks and valleys that played with my heartstrings. And I want to be able to relive this with you guys, walk you through just what it felt like from my perspective. I'm sure many of you guys watching that are Vikings fans probably felt a lot of the same things. So I want to work through those together and kind of break down what I thought about a lot of the key moments, and there were plenty of them. Before we get into all that, if you guys are new to the channel, first timers, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me yet again. Please consider subscribing to the channel. That helps me out so very much. We just hit our goal of 500 subscribers. We're going to keep trying to push forward. 1,000 is the new goal. You can be a part of this next climb for Relentless Press. If you find yourself halfway through the video and you're enjoying the content, crush that like button for me as well. That is very appreciated. Now, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to call this, and I honestly have no idea if I'm going to do my reactions and takeaways from it in this video or a separate one. But let's start off in the first quarter. Actually, before we get to the first quarter, let's just start off how I felt coming into this game. So I have been, let's just say, a tentative believer in this team from the beginning. I thought when the season started that we had a good team, that we had all of the pieces, but I have felt that many times before as a Vikings fan. Things haven't always worked out. In fact, things have never worked out to the complete way we wanted, right? So I came in hoping for the best, but expecting the worst, which is pretty much what it means to be a Vikings fan in general, I think. So as the Vikings are winning games, I'm continually enjoying them and getting excited about it. This game obviously is different. So leading up to this week, we have the storyline of, is Josh Allen going to play? And if he plays, is he going to be 100%? Personally, I wanted Josh Allen, and I wanted Josh Allen as close to 100% as possible. Because the Vikings have done everything besides prove to me, and obviously to the national media, who still probably isn't going to give them a rip, that they can win against good teams in tough environments. This was a measuring stick game for Minnesota, and I wanted to see where they stacked up, because their only other opportunity at that was way back in week 2. They did not show up against Philadelphia. So what has or maybe has not changed for this team was my first question. I was going to be okay with a Vikings loss here, to be completely honest. If Minnesota would have showed up, fought hard, and the Bills were just the better team on the day, and they ended up with a victory, as long as Minnesota made a game of it, proved that they were not just going to lay down, roll over, that would have been absolutely okay with me. So that's where I come into this game. I give Minnesota a 40-60 shot in this one, because Buffalo was at home. Okay, they got that crowd who are crazy, by the way, so props to Buffalo's fans, because they showed up in a big way. Although I will say, Minnesota's fans traveled as well. It was really cool to see them celebrate at the end of it. Really great environment all around. So when we start in the first quarter, Minnesota forces a 3-and-out, which you pretty much can't get any better than that. So that's when the excitement starts to rise a bit, but it is very early, so we know we have a long way to go. Got to contain ourselves. The Vikings do what they have always done this entire season. They have a scripted first drive, really don't run into any issues or problems. They score a touchdown. That is the 6th time in 9 tries for Minnesota so far this year. They have scored a touchdown on their opening possession. So you get excited for it, but you know, Minnesota, a lot of times this year, after that first drive, they can disappear for stretches, even as much as an hour of real time or a full quarter, completely go AWOL. So you love the touchdown to start. but you know that they have to continue that because Buffalo is not going anywhere and the Bills are going to score points. Something that stood out to me on that drive was TJ Hawkinson getting out and creaming a dude downfield, throwing a block for Justin Jefferson on a key third down conversion. That is something that you love to see. It shows that he is bought in here in Minnesota after just 2 weeks. I'll touch on it a little bit later. Great acquisition by the Vikings. And this touchdown is also when I realized, unfortunately for me, just how invested I was in this game, because I got up on my seat screaming and yelling, cheering on Jet when he is in the end zone, does the gritty, fakes the hammer injury. Don't do that again, by the way, Jet, please. Do not like that. But I was much more invested in this game early on than I had anticipated and especially wanted to be. But this is one of the biggest games that I've seen in a long time for the Purple, so I had to get behind him. So, of course, what happens? The Bills take it down the field, score easily. Devin Singletary basically walks it in, and we're all tied up. Really what I expected to happen, right? We know the Bills are going to score points, and then disaster strikes. Well, disaster number one, and that is Kirk Cousins sailing the football, next possession after the Bills score, and he had the receiver wide open. I think it was KJ Osborne. Probably missed him by 3 or 4 yards, right over the top of him, into the hands of the safety. And you're thinking, this is Kirk Cousins, right? We know in big games, this is the guy that can show up. And he did. And when you see that Kirk Cousins, as a Vikings fan, your heart immediately sinks into your stomach. Because you know, when that Kirk starts to show up, good things do not end up happening. Like ever. So already early on, we have the big highs and now a crushing low with the interception. On the Bills' third drive, I think is when I first started to realize that Josh Allen, while he may not be 100% completely, he is playing awfully close to 100%. He had a couple excellent throws on that third drive. He evaded pressure. He was delivering strikes, especially on the run. And then he ran on that third down and 11 and basically bulldozed 3 Vikings defenders. And you kind of got a little worried because, like, all right, well, I wanted Josh Allen. I want him at 100%. Maybe I shouldn't have asked for that because he is really good when he gets going. Drive ends. Singletary walks it in for the second time. And I have to call out Patrick P. We'll get to his good stuff later, but there were 2 instances where Singletary got in, where Patrick Peterson had a one-on-one shot, and I wouldn't even say he whiffed because he basically didn't even get in position to make a tackle. So early on, Patrick Peterson was really struggling. This is a Vikings team that came in as a top 10 rushing defense. And I think all Vikings fans knew that if you cannot stop the run in this game, you really have no chance at beating Buffalo because we know they're going to sling it. We were down Cameron Dantzler. We had issues in the secondary all year long. And so if we cannot even make Buffalo one-dimensional, we're in for a long day. So to see the Bills get back-to-back drives early on where they had rushing touchdowns that were basically the running back getting completely untouched, it was not a good sign. That takes us to the second quarter, and it shows the Vikings' struggles at the goal line. It was a great drive by the Vikings to be able to get it back into position to get some points on the board. But on first and goal, Madison loses yardage, and then on second and goal, it's really where we as Vikings fans saw the trouble beginning, if it hadn't already with the Kirk pick. And that was this offensive pass interference on TJ Hawkinson. Now, I'm usually a proponent of letting people play. And boy, did the refs ever let people play in this. But that offensive PI on Hawkinson, there was little to no contact on it. It really forced the Vikings to settle for a field goal more or less. It moved them back second and goal from like the 13 or something, but absolutely killed the drive. It was a completely brutal call, which got even worse on the next play. When TJ Hawkinson gets absolutely mugged by multiple Buffalo defenders and there is no flag. So you get the ticky-tack call on the offensive PI, which was not one. And then you have a guy draped over, full contact from when the ball leaves Cousins' hands to when it hits Hawkinson's with no call. You start to kind of see where the NFL is leaning in this game. Vikings settle for a field goal. We're down 17-10 with about 6:15 in the half. So honestly, we're in a decent spot right now. We're only down by one score. We can get a stop here. I like where we're at heading into halftime, especially when you know the pick that Cousins already threw. Things have not gone our way as far as the calls. But once again, it is the Bills making the moves offensively. They drive down pretty much without issue once again. And then that Minnesota defense, who has been there in key moments all season long, makes a monster play. They force the fumble from Devin Singletary. You start to get that feeling of this team is going to fight. On the road, brutal environment, they are going to give it everything that they have. And being able to not only cause that fumble recovery to keep it a one-possession game, but then the wherewithal of Cameron Bynum to pick that sucker up and run it 40 yards the other way. It was a very heads-up play, completely shifted the momentum of the game because Buffalo could have taken a stranglehold right then and there. Now, unfortunately, the Vikings came up short on that possession. They had it a 3rd down and 1, decided to air it out to Jet. Don't hate the play call, but then on 4th and 1, they throw a slant to KJ Osborne. And I like the aggressiveness in that, hey, we're not just going to run the ball on, 3rd and 4th and short situations. But we knew also coming into this game that we had to stop the run and we had to be able to run. Buffalo was weakest in that front 7, at least far more weak than their secondary was coming into this game. So if you cannot go out and get a single yard, you're going to be in trouble anyway. I would have loved to see Dalvin Cook get at least one of those touches. Bills get the ball back with the turnover on downs. 2-minute drive, does not see any issues whatsoever. Great catch by Gabe Davis. And Minnesota is down 24-10 at half. And so we go from this range of emotions where we think that we're in it, getting that turnover, a chance to tie it, to now all of a sudden we are down 2 touchdowns on the road and Buffalo has all of the momentum. So I don't know about you guys, but that hurt a lot to be able to fight through that and say, I'm still going to watch this game. I did not really want to at that point. We'd seen this story before, right? It's a big game for the Vikings. People have been doubting us. People have been saying that we are not legit. And so what happens? Oh, you get crushed by the Bills, and you're not legit. And more than anything, that is the narrative that I wanted destroyed at the end of this game. And it was more of a, I've seen this before, I know how this ends kind of feel, at least for me. Something that we have seen up to this point all season, though, from the Minnesota Vikings, is that they respond to adversity. They fight through it. They continue to claw and do everything that they can to stay in the game. And that was what I was hoping would come out of the second half. Instead, we come out of the second half and what happens? Absolute worst case scenario. Kirk Cousins throws one of the worst picks that I have ever seen in my life. It was really clear that not only did he panic, but then he thought Dane Jackson, the cornerback for the Buffalo Bills, was actually a Vikings receiver, threw it right into his breadbasket. Honestly, was pretty lucky that it was not returned for a pick 6. So now Kirk has not one, but 2 poor interceptions, that last one being absolutely unacceptable. And that's where your hope dies a little bit too, because if Cousins is going to make those type of plays, there's really nothing the rest of the team is going to be able to do to overcome that. Now, thankfully, Minnesota's defense in the second half absolutely stepped it up. So right after that pick happens, they force a monster 3-and-out. Zadarius Smith, who has been dominant all season long, gets home and pulls off the sack, keeps Minnesota at least slightly within striking distance. Now, we've also seen all year where the Vikings offense in the third quarter is absolutely abysmal. That was the same in this game. They do nothing with it. Bills get the ball back and they get a field goal after the Vikings once again went 3-and-out. So we have 1:51 left in the third quarter. The Bills have a commanding 27-10 lead. At that point, there really is not a whole lot of hope left, if I'm being honest, because down 3 scores to this team Buffalo is a very good football team. You need to play an excellent game of football from beginning to end to be able to have a chance to beat them and even to hang in with them. So with that deficit, I did not have much hope that Minnesota was going to pull it out. Hoping, right, that they score a touchdown or two, at least make it look semi-decent. But Dalvin Cook had other plans. His 81-yard touchdown run right before the third quarter ended was the turning point in this game for Minnesota. For him to be able to get out into space and then show that fifth gear, which I feel like he has been missing for most of this season, I think that not only got the wind back in the sails for the Vikings offensively, but it helped pick that defense up as well. And with that score, the smallest, tiniest amount of hope starts to creep in. Now, Stephon Diggs, of course, tries to do everything he can to crush that by making one of the best catches that you're ever going to see to end that third quarter. But still, when you bring it to within a 10-point game going into the fourth, you feel like if things swing right, maybe you can get back into it. Now, speaking of Jefferson and Diggs, I think going on in this game, you could see that there was a clear battle between the both of them to prove that they were the better of the two receivers. It was kind of a back and forth thing. And when Diggs made that catch, it was a statement from him that I am the better part of the deal. I think they like each other. I think they respect each other. But I also know that they are both competitors and they wanted to go out and prove that they were the best. So we get into the fourth quarter. Bills get two consecutive third down conversions, one of them on 3rd down and 16, which is an absolute backbreaker, and you're screaming at the heavens for Ed Donachelle to turn this defense into a little bit more of an aggressive one to try to get the ball back. The Vikings, however, are able to buckle down as they have, to their credit, in the red zone, and they force a 4th down and 2. Now, this was a very interesting call from Sean McDermott. I thought for sure that he would take the points here and push this one to a 13-point lead. Instead, he went for the dagger at home, which I suppose you can't really blame him for. Minnesota is a good offensive team, so I feel like taking the points when you can get them would have probably been the better call. Of course, hindsight is 20/20. What happens next leans into that fact. The Vikings are able to pick off Josh Allen in the end zone. It's Patrick Peterson. There is not really anywhere to go for Allen, so an awesome coverage sack. And then the defensive line being able to get home was key. Vikings are able to methodically move it down the field. The time is ticking here. We're down 10 points with about 6 minutes, 10 seconds to play. On that drive, key 4th down and 6 conversion by TJ Hawkinson, once again showing why the Vikings went out and got him. Then the unthinkable happens. And it is one of the most crazy and beautiful things that you can see, and honestly, you don't know it until it's already happened. And that is when Kirk Cousins transforms into Kirko Chainz. And when that happens, Minnesota has a chance to go out and beat anyone. And it happened here on a long run where Cousins finished it by laying out with 100% effort and throwing a shoulder into a defender. He was not going to be denied that 1st down, and he was trying to show to his teammates that he was going all in. Something we've seen from Minnesota all year at the goal line is a lot of misdirection, whether that is an actual fake handoff, the illusion of complexity is something Minnesota has been doing all season long. They do it again here. This time they hand off to the fullback, C.J. Ham, who plows into the end zone and gets Minnesota within a score. So 4.5 minutes left. Minnesota is within a field goal, right? Well, not so fast, because we all know that Vikings fans have the great honor of having the fantasy kicking gods absolutely refusing to allow things to go our way. So Greg the Leg misses the extra point, and you're saying to yourself as a Vikings fan, we have definitely been here before. So this changes the entire outlook of how the rest of this game happens, right? Because if Minnesota only needs a field goal, Bills probably play differently on their possession. Minnesota definitely plays differently on their possession. However, as it stands, it is 27-23, 4.5 minutes to go. Bills get the ball. And that Vikings defense did what it basically did in the entire second half. Buckled down, got to stop. They actually force a 3 and out. And when that happens, you start to, eyes are open and realize, is this actually happening? Could we actually win this game? Little more hope deciding to creep its way in. But then, crushed, because Kirk Cousins takes a sack, and it is 4th down and 18. And we know the chances of being able to convert that in the NFL are basically slim to none. So Cousins on 4th and 18, actually shout out to him because he did a great job sliding up in the pocket, beating the pressure, and slinging it downfield. And then what happens next is one of the most beautiful things you will ever see. It's Justin Jefferson making the catch of the year, his catch of his career, and maybe one of the top catches in NFL history. To be able to climb the ladder with one hand, steal it from the defender, fall on his arm while cradling the football, and still come down with it. That was a play that Jefferson basically said, I am the best wide receiver in the league. Let me show you why. So when the Vikings convert that 4th down and 18, the hope kind of almost turns to a feeling of like destiny. Like, I mean, if he's gonna make that catch, we're gonna come back from where we've been to where we are now. Something's different here. We might be able to pull this out for real. Vikings continue to drive, going back to Jefferson. He gets Minnesota inside the 5-yard line. And then Ed Ingram does what Ed Ingram always do, steps on Kirk Cousins on 1st down and goal, causing a loss. Sets up a 3rd down and goal, where Kirk throws a really good ball to Jet across the middle of the field, catches it, touchdown, but not. They show on the replay that he did make the catch, but he is just short. And so that sets up the most heart-stopping 4th down and goal, probably that I've ever watched in my entire life. And the play works out beautifully. They fake the handoff to Cook up the middle. He pops out on a little swing route. He is wide open. The ball is there, and Cook drops it. Soul absolutely crushed. Thankfully, there is a flag on the play. It's offsides against Buffalo, giving Minnesota another opportunity where they decide to do a quarterback sneak. And I really liked the call. Thought there was a decent, definitely not a great push. I thought Kirk got it. Okay, I'm clearly biased, but it seemed to me that as he's falling on his shoulder and extending, that ball has already crossed the goal line. Now, of course, you are not going to get that call in Buffalo. So when this happens, I'm not going to lie, I lost my mind a little bit because I was so invested at that point in this game. For Minnesota to come up that short on a play that I clearly thought they got in, and that could be debated. I think it was close, but I had to take a breather. So I walk out of the room, take a breath, hear my pops and my brother screaming at the TV. Now I think the game is over, right? We stopped them on the goal line. The Bills are gonna kneel out the clock, and this one is toast. Walk in to see a scrum happening, none other than Eric Kendricks at the bottom of the pile with the ball for Minnesota, scoring the touchdown. It was as if the football gods had said that we have had enough of this. The Vikings are going to get this game. But that would have been way too easy. And as a Vikings fan, I totally should have saw that coming. So what happens? The Bills move the ball down with ease. No struggles. Sling it around the field. 13 yards and out of bounds here. 10 yards and out of bounds there. And then the Gabe Davis catch happens. Now, watching this one live, when he comes down out of bounds, it seemed pretty clear to me that it was not a catch, right? But when they go and show the replay of it, it's not even close. It's not even please. So for the NFL to decide not to stop the play there and review it in that critical of a moment, you really see where the refs are leaning in this game. That is an unacceptable one. It cost the Vikings 20 yards, gave the Bills the ball out of bounds as well, so they got to stop the clock. It was such a crucial play, such an obvious play that should have been corrected and wasn't. Makes you think about the narrative that the NFL is trying to push. My question is this: that play happens 100 times. How many times are the refs going to not stop the play and take a look at it? Because I think that is a one of one. ends up being a moot point, right? Bills kick the field goal. We're going into overtime. My heart is pumping more blood than it ever has in its entire life. And I'm honestly at this point, after seeing that Gabe Davis catch, I'm pretty much thinking to myself, no matter what the Vikings do in this game, I don't think that the refs are going to allow the Vikings to win it, which is an absolutely helpless and horrible place to be, especially for how hard this team fought to get to where they were at. I will say, I did love how once overtime started, they went back to command center. How convenient. And they decided to say, hey guys, we screwed up. Yeah, we should have stopped the play. It wasn't a catch. Oh, well, thanks guys. Really appreciate that. It helps us out so much right now. So that was beyond frustrating. However, a beautiful thing occurred in this overtime. That is Kirko Chainz showing up for Minnesota. He makes some big time throws, converts some key third downs, and takes the Vikings down to first down and goal from inside the 5 yet again. However, in a bizarre and extremely painful string of events, Minnesota ends up on third down and goal from outside the 15, and it's the second time this game where they've had a first down and goal inside the 5 that ends up becoming a third down and goal from well outside the 10-yard line. So definitely something that needs to be cleaned up. When Minnesota gets that 3, I'm not sure how much faith I had in the Vikings, the defense, even though they played really good in the second half. You just think, man, this is Josh Allen at home in overtime. He's going to find a way to get a touchdown. And I'll tell you here right now, my heart was not ready for the Vikings to lose that game. Then Josh Allen starts destroying people, running rampant for a couple key first downs. Bills are in striking distance. Now, big step-up play by Duke Shelley. The backup to the backup cornerback makes a play on Dawson Knox to save a touchdown, which ended up leading into the biggest play of the game. And that was Patrick Peterson picking off Josh Allen for the second time in the end zone. He called game. Minnesota decided that they were not going to allow all of these ridiculous circumstances that were out of their control dictate their attitude towards the game. They were able to set that aside, go play to the best of their abilities, and once again, for the 8th time in 9 games, they found a way to win. I think I am going to cut it there. I will get my takeaways from this game, drop that in another video for you guys. I hope I was able to kind of convey the emotional swings that I, and I'm sure so many other Vikings fans, felt going through this game. The ups, the downs, the side-to-sides, the madness, all of it was something incredible to experience. Now, when the Vikings won this one, I didn't even celebrate. I literally sat down for 2 whole minutes on my seat and did not move, staring at the TV, trying to understand what just occurred. My brother, who's not even a Vikings fan, by the way, but he cheers for them because he's my brother, he is losing his mind. My dad, lifelong Vikings fan, sitting next to me, basically with the same look of shock that I have. And I think even more than 24 hours later, still trying to come to grips with the entirety of that game. But from start to finish, the ups and the downs, I felt like were unmatched. Now, the last time I can remember being so invested, probably back in 2009 with Bountygate. So that was another part that played into this, this was a big game for Minnesota because it was, like I said, a measuring stick to see where we are actually at. And are we a team that's going to go somewhere, or are we a team that's going to do what the Vikings have done a lot over the last decade plus and crumble in key moments when it mattered the most? So proud of this team, so proud of the performance that they put on. Cannot wait to see how the national media decides to twist this and ask ourselves, are the Vikings, legit? Did they just get lucky in this game? Because that will be the story. And that's okay with me, because Minnesota is better when no one is paying attention. We could play with a chip on our shoulders, and I hope that is what the Vikings continue to do. Now, if you enjoyed this content, please let me know in the comment section down below. Tried something completely new, felt that I had to touch on this great game. And who knows, maybe with some good games coming forward, we can do something like this again. Smash the like button if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abraham Opatz, and I will see you next time.